Now, that evolution that campaign strategist Paul Manafort was promising the party leaders there would bring a more measured Trump, a more presidential Trump. But if we've learned anything these past 9 months, it is that Trump enjoys being Trump.
So Lyin' Ted took a really nice meeting with the RNC, Republican National Committee. Took a really, Raphael. Yeah. Raphael, straight out of the hills of Canada. 4 years in Canada. Was a Canadian citizen until 14, 15 months ago. If I was presidential, first of all, I'd have a teleprompter. You ever see crooked Hillary Clinton? She walks in. Good afternoon, Bridgeport. How are you? This is crooked Hillary Clinton. Then people start yawning, leaving. The whole thing is a disaster.
Now, 5 states vote Tuesday, and Trump appears poised to win them all, including Connecticut, where he made clear Saturday he didn't appreciate the secret recording.
So to show you how honorable the people in the room were, they taped these conversations. They didn't tell anybody. Probably illegal. I wonder if it's legal. Maybe they have to go to jail. But, you know, they taped it.
Maybe they have to go to jail. Ashley Parker, you spent a lot of time on the Trump campaign. Paul Manafort goes to this party meeting. Republican leaders are very, very nervous that a Trump-led ticket causes them to lose races for Congress, for House, for Senate, for governor, for dog catcher. Paul Manafort says, don't worry, be calm. It's mostly an act. The evolution is coming. Really?
Well, right. Exactly. And I think we all remember even a couple weeks ago when Donald Trump said, you know, there are 2 Donald Trumps, and then just moments later, the second Donald Trump said, actually, there's only 1 Donald Trump. And so I think there's one version of Trump that deeply worries the party. And also what worries them is even that uncertainty, right? When they have Paul Manafort saying privately trust us, he's this calm presidential guy, and then Trump going out there and saying presidential, well, you know, let's not get too presidential. You don't sort of want uncertainty in a commander-in-chief, and that's a concern regardless of which Trump we get.
And so did it work? You know, Manafort goes into this private meeting. Dan, you know these people. You've covered them for years. A lot of them know Paul from past campaigns. And so when he goes in and says, trust me, a lot of them are probably inclined to say, okay, this guy's a serious player. But then they look at Trump and they're going back to their states and they're thinking, is my senator going to get washed out here? Is my governor going to get washed out here? Did it work, at least in the moment, and then Trump undermines it? Or is it good cop, bad cop?
Well, I think they want to believe that this could happen, that he would become a more presidential-like candidate. And if you talk to people down there, I was there with a couple of my colleagues, you know, they're beginning to wrap themselves around the idea that he's probably going to be their nominee, but they're not happy about that, and they're not convinced that he's going to be good for the party. And so it's an odd thing. It's like we may have to make peace with this, but it's going to be a very uneasy peace.
And John, the real problem for Trump is that he's trying to make this case to the party establishment to make them feel okay, that he won't upset them and hurt their down-ticket races in the general election, but he's still facing off with Ted Cruz, who's trying to attack him for not being consistent on core conservative positions. And when Paul Manafort says something like this, it just reinforces those attacks in which the Cruz campaign is trying to capitalize.
Right, and Paul Manafort also said Trump wants peace with the party, and then Trump at every rally since that secretly recorded meeting says it's a rigged system, the party's out to get me. But you raise an important point. So Ted Cruz, this tape gets leaked, and Ted Cruz says, I told you so. Donald Trump's a fraud, Ted Cruz wants you to believe, that anything he says is just an act. You don't know what to believe. Cruz trying to make this case, yes, there are 5 states Tuesday. Cruz actually more focused on Indiana in May because of the map. We'll get to the math and the map in a minute. But listen to Ted Cruz saying, whenever Donald Trump speaks, don't believe it.
In the past 48 hours, Donald Trump's lobbyists have taken over his campaign, and they've gone down and told Republican Party bosses that everything Donald has said on the campaign is just a show. He doesn't believe any of it. He's not going to build a wall. He's not going to deport anyone. This is just a lie. And I will say to the millions of Americans who are frustrated with politicians who are lying to them, Donald is telling us he's lying to us.
I mean, that's the response you would expect. You know, here it is. The campaign strategist says it's an evolution. He suggested a lot of it's just an act. Ted Cruz tries to seize on it. But does it matter to Trump voters?
Well, I think that when Trump gets back on stage and pushes back at this idea that he's going to have a shift, he is trying to push back on what Cruz is saying there. So much of Trump's appeal with voters is the idea that he is authentic, that he maybe doesn't look presidential on the stage, but he's telling them the truth. He's telling them exactly what he believes. And he knows that if he does suddenly moderate his policy positions, if he suddenly isn't quite the showman that he is, he will lose some of his crowd, and he equates that to losing voters. So he's trying to walk this fine line where he wants his staff to be appealing to Republican elites, bigwigs in the party, but he knows that for regular voters, him being out there and kind of being the showman that he's been is really effective.
And it just spoke to also the two audiences that these two candidates, if you want to add John Kasich too, but particularly Cruz and Trump, are playing for. They're playing for the base voters and folks who are upset with the party establishment, and the delegates at the convention, who a lot of them are the party establishment. So, and they need to win those delegates over if this goes to a second ballot. It's the challenge that both Cruz and Trump have.
And Trump tried to explain this away in his rallies. He said, sure, my campaign guy goes into a private meeting and says Trump will be different. He goes, of course I'm going to be different. At a big rally, I'm going to be more provocative. I'm trying to get you all to stand up and cheer. This is a pep rally. That would be a serious conversation about states and about money and about targeting. So Trump says it's no big deal, and that it's Cruz making much ado about nothing.
When I'm in a room talking, you're one way. When I'm out here talking to you people, I got to be different, right? I mean, I can say basically the same thing. So Cruz picks it up, Lyin' Ted. He goes, Donald Trump is kidding everybody. He's different on the trail. He said, and he said that he's going to do things differently. And he's not going to build the wall. What the hell does this have to do with the wall? Believe me, I'm building the wall.
I think he wants to build the wall.
He does want to build the wall. The one thing you have to keep remembering about Donald Trump is, more than any other candidate in this race, he has kind of mastered the modern art of political communication, or in some ways redefined it. He understands the social media age in ways most of the other candidates don't. He knows what he's doing when he's talking before these big audiences. I do think the question is whether Paul Manafort, who is an inside player, can play an inside game at the same time Donald Trump is playing the outside game.
Right. If Manafort's goal is to convince the party leadership and those unbound delegates, don't turn your back on Donald Trump. Even if you're not ready to commit today, keep an open mind to it. Does Trump then coming out and being, as he was over the weekend, hurt that cause?
Well, the thing you have to remember about Trump, as Dan said, is that he gets a lot more latitude than all of the other candidates. So you have Ted Cruz trying to brand Donald Trump as a liar and disingenuous, but let's remember, Donald Trump is the one who has dubbed Ted Cruz Lying Ted, right? So there's sort of something tragically poignant about Lying Ted trying to convince America and Republican base voters that Donald Trump is actually the liar. It's a steep climb.
And I think that one of the really important things to remember about the place that we are in this campaign is that Donald Trump's best chance of becoming the Republican nominee is to do it through the regular voting process. He needs to win in a bunch of states that vote on Tuesday, probably needs to win in Indiana and then in California. If this does go to a convention, he's in a much more difficult position. So whatever is working for him in terms of winning states is what he's going to stick with, because that's his best prospect of becoming the nominee.